From toddlers to teens,
and social media to screens.
we have so much to be mindful about as parents in the digital age.
Bruh.
As Black and brown moms with 6 kids between us, we're excited to be partnering with Meta, a company that is committed to supporting parents in this digital age, and to be answering some of parents' biggest questions about technology, safety, and raising resilient kids.
We'll double click on AI, technology, and online safety through expert insights and our own parenting wins and fails because none of us have this figured out.
I'm Samantha Danielle, content creator, writer, and mom of 3 teens.
I'm Kanika Chadda-Gupta, TV journalist, podcast host, and mom of Irish triplets in elementary school.
And this is Parenting in the Digital Age with Sam
and Kanika, brought to you by Meta. Welcome to Parenting in the Digital Age with Sam and Kanika, brought to you by Meta, where we decode the world of screens, social media, and AI so that parents like us can keep up with our kids so we don't feel totally clueless.
And one of our friends is an iconic figure from the 90s in the most as-if way, ELISA Donovan, aka Amber from Clueless.
She made whatever a catchphrase that now our kids are saying to us, and she has some wisdom to drop today. ELISA talks about raising her 12-year-old daughter in this era of Insta and AI and all things digital.
And ELISA is going to take us from being clueless to clued in, so buckle up and get ready to listen.
ELISA Donovan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. Okay, so first things first, we all remember you as the ultra stylish, super sassy Amber from Clueless. And now you're a cool mom. You're not like the other moms. And you're raising a daughter in a world that Cher and Dion and Amber could have never imagined. But I want us to take it back. What was it like growing up for you? Tell us a bit about your childhood.
So, that is going back. I was a kid who was always expressing herself with the caveat of around people I didn't know, very shy. I didn't, my parents always had dinner parties and things like that. And with people I didn't know and grown-ups, I was very closed mouth. But within my family and my friends, I was always creating things. My brother and I would put on plays together, and sometimes my sister would participate. She didn't really want to, but we would make her. Or we would do magic shows, and I was drawing, and I was a dancer and a gymnast and rode horses, with like a very active life. And the creative parts, which, I was writing all the time, drawing, painting, putting on play, but I didn't know that was something that you could do as a career, because nobody in my immediate life was an artist of any sort. So I think I was a bit of an enigma to my parents.
And that's great. I think it's so important that we just stay true to ourselves. And if you know that as a kid, you just let that carry you through and help you chart your path.
Yeah, I think about that, with my daughter, of how it's that dance or balance of letting them be who they are, and then also having guardrails, where you aren't, instituting your whole belief system for them. Like, oh, I think you'd be great with this, and but still putting in the parameters of, it's great if you want to express yourself, but you can't, throw food on the floor if you don't want to, like those sort of like basic things. But it becomes more and more challenging, right? As your kids get older, it's like, how do you maintain that place of, I support you and I reflect who you are, and also these are our values as a family.
It is a balancing act. It's definitely a balancing act, but it sounds like you already and always had that creative spirit. And then it kind of just like even maybe even led into, because I say creative arts, most people that you see that are like in acting, they always have something else underlined, whether it's,
Mhm.
like you said, drawing or storytelling. I think it's all tied into like the creative brain. So
Yes.
I completely get that. And like for us, obviously, many people, we all know about you being on Clueless, Alyssa, but many people don't know that you were also on Blossom,
Mm.
90210, and basically just all the shows we loved growing up when we were growing into our teens. Um, Speaking about that, how was that? Like being a creative girl growing up on set, how was that?
Well, I didn't really grow up on set. I didn't work until like that. Blossom was the first really TV job that I had. I did a couple of little regional commercials in New York, but really that was the first major television job that I had, and I was already 22. So I see the difference between some of my friends and colleagues that really did grow up. It's a very different experience. So I feel like I had a little bit of a sense of who I was, um, and that's not to say that it wasn't challenging, because it certainly was in my 20s to suddenly be have all this notoriety that you want, but then you realize, oh, I didn't realize it came with all these other things, with going to the grocery store and having people come at. So it's bizarre, but at the same time, now I'm 54 years old and people are still asking about these early things that I did in my career. So it's kind of this lesson of, like, I'm very grateful for it, but then you also have to know you're gonna carry that with you,
Yeah.
which is a blessing, right? Because that means that it really imprinted on people. Um, but then you also have to find the grace to incorporate it into the rest of your life.
Wow, and that's so cool because you kind of got the best of both worlds. Like you had your childhood to
Yes.
be a kid, to explore, to learn, to grow. And then by the time you got to become an adult, you were able to go into that space and be there and grow into your like young adult years on set. So that is a
Yeah.
really cool experience.
I do, a lot of people ask me, what do I do if my child wants to be an actor and wants to, and I can already tell they're going, how do I get them, you know, an agent, or how do I get them? And every time I say, what you should do is put them into theater, do their school plays. If they are more interested than that, then you find a studio, a place to study outside of school, because it is like imperative that kids understand what it is to play and what it is to really know, to get into it for the right reasons. Because now it's like everybody wants everything to be fast and quick, and they think celebrity is everything. And that's really, it's just full of pitfalls and dangerous things where, you have to be in it. It's so hard. It's like an incredibly difficult business to get to thrive in. And if your goal is to just be famous, you're in trouble, you know.
You're in trouble.
That.
You have to like have the creative fire that keeps you committed to it when the peaks and valleys happen. When the valleys happen, you have to have that internal belief that this is what I'm meant to do, so I keep going.
Yes, yes, and you've worked with other child actors, so you've seen, and heard about their experiences, like Melissa Joan Hart from Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and Maya from Blossom. Like, yeah, yeah, they had that child star persona. One thing I know is when you were trying to convince your dad, you were at Tisch, right?
I
And
was
you
at
decided to,
school, so I
yes,
didn't go to Tisch. I was accepted at Tisch, but I did not go because at that time you were not allowed to audition professionally for the first 2 years you were at the studio. I
Oh,
already had an agent and a manager. Now, And so at the time I had said, I don't want to go backwards is how it
Right.
felt. For me, the new school and Eugene Line College was absolutely there. It was a phenomenal school for me. But when I look at it now, I understand why they did that. Like I think that that's quite wise, actually. So I have a different feeling about it as a grown up than I did then.
Yeah. But I mean, you had your eye on the prize from the beginning.
Yes.
And I think you just knew to trust your gut, which is really amazing. So onto Clueless, which was just a breakout film with iconic characters. I have to reference the words that vernacular that we use all the time, from whatever to loser. It's amazing. I feel like that was our entire high school, and we still say, my 6-year-old says whatever to me backseat at the car.
I bet
I'm
that
like,
feels great.
"Dude, finish reading."
That.
Yeah. It's just, and I'm like, you have no idea where that even originated. But it's it's amazing how it's transcended generations. Did you know that you were like on set, part of such a groundbreaking, trend-setting film?
Uh, the short answer is no. But, you know, I did feel like, I mean, no. While we were doing it, no. When we first saw it, there was a test screening that Alicia, Paul, Justin, Donald, and I went to, and we sat in the back row. And it was the first time, I think, that for all of us, that we had seen the full film, certainly with an audience. And I was stunned. I just went, "Oh, this movie's going to be huge."
Yeah,
That is
it's
so
going
cool.
places.
I have to ask you then, what was it like being on set with your co-stars? I know you said that you didn't know at the time what it was going to be like, but like looking back, how was that time? What was it like? How was the energy?
You know, it's funny. Alicia and I just spoke about this recently, which we had never done. She was like, "It was really stressful." And I said, "Yeah, yeah, ditto." Like, it was very stressful. um, and certainly more so for her, or in different ways. I remember reading James Baldwin in my trailer, that's what I was doing, and then being worried, like, am I too fat, am I gonna lose, like, just all of that crazy stuff. Like, it was tough. But at the same time it was super fun. So it's like, it's complicated. Everybody always wants to hear it was like perfect and fun and great, and it was great, but it was also challenging, for sure.
I think people sometimes just see the finished product of things and they have no idea. And I love that we're having this conversation because it's kind of like even social media and kids. Like
Yes.
I know my kids look to influencers so much. And I think all of us are kind of content creators in some kind of way or another. And a lot of times families don't know, kids don't know. It takes so much to even just create what they're seeing
Yep.
happening. So it sounds like there's some parallels there.
It's really true. It's very true. We're grown-ups, so we understand somewhat, the massive shift that's happened with social media and just the internet and everything, all tech in the past 10 to 20 years, right? They don't have the benefit of that, of seeing the before and after, or really living through the transition, right? So it's nearly possible for my daughter to understand half the things I try to explain to her. And you sort of, I look at it like, okay, what is useful information for her, and what is just me talking about, back in my day. I really try not to do that. She interprets it that way often,
It's
and I
so
can see
hard.
how she starts to like drift, and
It is hard. And I think like now that everyone is a content creator and like break it down, like what do you love about it? What do you hate about it?
Oh, I was thinking, I was desperately, I knew you were going to ask me this, and I was really trying to dig in the depths to find something that I love about it, because I can tell you what I don't love is that, one, everyone's an expert with zero experience. People can create something and call it art, call it a TV show, call it and I just think it's a tremendous disservice to craft, to education, to preparation, to curiosity, to really digging deep and understanding why you want to say something or what the story is that you have to tell. Why do you want to do these things? And the positive side is that people have a place to express themselves, and in the best of worlds, it's we're able to communicate and touch people in very far away places that we might not be able to do. I just really hope that what really discourages me is my daughter's 12, and from the time she was mini Winnie, she was like completely her own person, right? She always like wore weird things, was an unusual kid, played the ukulele like she had played guitar in a rock band but had never done, you know what I mean? Like she just was very and really, I always joke like she was talking to dead people from the time she was born, she'd be like looking around and and like have a conversation. She's a very old soul kid. And I just love that about her so much. And now I'm watching her in the last year or so or two, starting to have this thing of losing her confidence and doing what everybody else does. And, oh, I need to have this. She was the kid that would never wear a dress. No, like I would have to call, if she had to wear one for something, I'd be like, it's a long shirt, or like I would call it something else. And if there was somebody who'd say, oh, I love your dress. And I would like yell over, it's a long shirt, it's a tunic. It's like something, I would give it another name. And now it's not that I don't, she still doesn't love to wear dresses, but my point is she is starting to like conform in these ways that I don't want her to impede her instincts, and her own creativity and her own individuality. And what worries me about all of these, some, not all, some quote content creators is they're just regurgitating something that someone else has done and then getting everyone else to do the same thing. And it is just inherently against my entire personality to support that sort of idea. And so it really, I mean, I obviously have big feelings about this. And again, like I get kids, at that age, as I said, she's 12. So, 12 to 15-ish especially is such a delicate time for girls, especially. So I understand that is just a real thing where they try to connect and find out who they are and find their place and all of that. And I just so much want her and all kids, but obviously my own child especially, to really listen to her inner voice and to develop her own voice as opposed to just taking someone else's and thinking that that's the way to be.
I can completely relate to what you're saying because even for me, like I knew I wanted to be a journalist because I grew up watching Barbara Walters and Oprah and Connie Chung. And it was like, okay, these are household names and women who have paid their dues and got to this level.
Right.
And I kind of charted the same path where I was like, okay, I'm going to do traditional TV. Ended up becoming a television anchor for CNN International and did that. And then now any old reality star can be like, well, I'm going to have my own podcast. I'm going to have my own show. And I'm like, I have a master's degree. I work for this shit. So
Right.
it's hard to like, just
Yeah.
like accept that. Like any old person can come in there and then they have like 10x the amount of followers. And you're like, Okay, well, how did we just get sidelined when this was our craft? But I think something that I keep telling myself and my kids is the cream floats to the top.
Yes.
So
Yes. That's right.
your quality, and if you, yeah, are authentic, like don't even worry about all the noise and every second person doing the same thing. You're
Yep.
going to make it your own and succeed.
I
Yep.
love that, Kanika. I love that. And I love that you are like cultivating a space for your daughter to be herself. I love that you were like, it's a tunic, it's not a dress. Whatever you have to do, be yourself.
She said to me the other day, which I will keep with me, you're like one of the cool moms, but the only thing that's not cool is that you're really healthy. And I'm like, what? What's that? She means
Like
she thinks
crunchy
that
granola.
because I eat organic food and like cook organically for our family. I mean, so I felt like, oh, I'm cool. But I think that's only because sometimes her friends think I'm cool.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But she at the same time said to me the other day, what do you do all day? And I was like, well, and this is I'm like, oh my God, I gotta get back to like I gotta start shooting my film or doing something so I can be like, no, this is what I'm doing all day, you know? Well,
Actually,
I have meetings and I have to answer emails and the film is in development and she's like, like she doesn't really get it because she can't see it, you know? Which
Right.
I feel like the unspoken of moms universally, we don't
no,
really get any of the credit for
they
any
humble us. They
it's
humble
They,
us. I don't think I've been more humbled by anyone more than my kids
uh
in life.
oh my God, it's so true. Um, I wanted to share about your book, Wake Me When You Leave, which is such a heartwarming memoir. And in it, it's almost like a love letter to your dad who passed away. And it was written, when you were looking back at a time of all these upheavals coming to a head at once, from Sabrina the Teenage Witch getting canceled to a breakup with your, like the person you wanted to marry, to your dad being diagnosed with cancer. And so tell us a bit about like what you felt pouring your heart into these pages, because believe me, as a reader, like we felt that.
to me, it's like my soul's purpose and my life's work. This book, uh, it's I. That's sort of the simplest way I can say it. I have always been a writer since I was a child, writing stories and things. And then in high school, um, I had a teacher who really cultivated that, but it was not the primary, piece for me. And then when all of these things happened at the same time, I mean, it really was, I was in a relationship that was when I realized, oh, I want to get married and I want to have a child. And I didn't realize that until I met this person. And he did not want the same things at the same time that I did, it turned out. And then that just all started to unravel at the same time as Sabrina getting canceled. And I had all these other um, screen tests, which is, you do a studio network test for other series. I think it was something like 11 I had over the course and did not get any of them. And then my dad was diagnosed with cancer. And all three of these things happened at the same time. And so I went from completely understanding what my life was and in this great relationship, I am on a TV show, a happy, healthy family, to every single one of those things being taken away. And it brought me to this base level of reevaluating my whole life. And that was not something I wanted to do. It wasn't something I thought I had to do, but it was what I did. I started with writing about my mom because I felt like I was so devastated and so decimated by my dad's death. And it was a surprise to me, which maybe sounds ignorant or stupid, but I didn't know that I was going to feel so bereft and so lost. so then I kept thinking, if I feel this lost, how is my mom functioning? They've been together for 50 years, you know. She didn't know anything other than being with my dad. And he was a very conventional guy. And so I started to write more kind of how she was feeling. And then ultimately that allowed me to get to where I was. And it really was like a lifeline for me, you know. And I first did before I was always writing it sort of as a book, but I didn't quite know what I was going to do with it. And then I did a couple of spoken word things where I read at these events in LA. And then I turned it into a one woman show that I did at the Geffen as a benefit. And that was really where I went. Everything came together. I went, this is what I want my creative life to be. I want to impact people in a positive way, in an authentic and genuine way. And I want it to be uplifting and creative. Like I knew, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do here, because that show was they were like laughing to the point of tears. They were crying. They were, and I went, this is what it is to be human. This is what life is. This is like what my purpose is. So from that point, that's what started it all, really. And then I got the book deal, right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Mhm.
So, we had the call with the publisher, and it's like, great, sign all the things, and looking out and going, Scarlett's not going to have school. They're canceling school tomorrow. Like, okay, well, they're going to be back in, 2 weeks. Like,
We all thought 2 weeks.
And then the publisher's like, how is June as the first deadline for the first time? Like I already had, I got the deal based on a draft of the book, but how's June? I'm like, oh, that's totally fine, because, it'll be no problem. And then of course we all know, like, nothing. It was not 2 weeks. It was like a lifetime of, So I wrote the bulk of the rest of the book, while homeschooling. My husband and I were sharing the guest room as an office. It was like bananas.
But I mean, another silver lining is that it is now a screenplay.
Yes.
And you have it becoming a movie.
Yes.
That's amazing.
It'll be my directorial debut. So I'm super excited. We have a phenomenal cast that we're putting together, and these small films like this they have been disappearing for years. I'm hopeful that they're coming back now, but it's really a labor of love. People sign on because they believe in it and they want to do it, not because of a paycheck. So it's a slow process, but I'm really, really excited at where we're going.
Wow, that's amazing. This really is your purpose.
Yeah.
And it's just challenging you in different ways creatively. I wanted to give us a chance for Sam and I to just get vulnerable because, we just keep things real here. And I think so many of our viewers can see themselves in all three of us. So Sam, you've dealt with grief yourself. You also lost your dad tragically. What was it like for you?
I think that the thing about grief is it's like you don't even understand kind of what you're going through in the moment. I think it's almost like you look back at it. It's almost like you're like literally watching yourself on TV, because when something happens suddenly and tragically, I always say it's not that it gets better. It's just that distance happens between it and you learn to keep going. So I think that there's a lot of times, I mean, I lost my dad tragically. I was much younger. He was literally just an innocent bystander coming home from work. He was murdered. It was a young man who wanted to join a gang, and he just had to randomly pick someone, and he chose my dad.
Oh, oh.
Um, so I think for me, obviously, we didn't know that was going to happen. We had no preparation, and I think now, even in my 30s, it's still something that you feel it. You feel it in your heart. You know, like I said, I think you learn to keep going, you learn to keep living, but you'll always have that hurdle always be a part of you. You just learn how to continue to go along with it and the distance between it, you know. That's what I would say to grief. Um it's not something that just is like, "Oh, I'm okay now." It's one of those things where it's like I've learned to live with it, but it'll always be something that's kind of like a part of you, I would think. I would say.
I really, first of all, I'm just so sorry for that. And I totally agree. It doesn't go away at all. It just shifts, right? Like it just becomes, and I think this is one of these things that also me writing the book and trying to get the film made is like we don't have a lot of in our culture we don't talk about death and grief, and we don't incorporate it into life, and so many other cultures do. And I remember feeling like, especially in those first couple of years, that if someone didn't bring it up, I felt like either one, they didn't care, or two, they were delegitimizing. It made me feel crazier. It made me feel like, God, why am I so screwed up about this? Like there must be something wrong with me. I got to get it together, you know? And it's just doing such a disservice to everything, to what it is to be alive, to the person who passed, to, it's and it's why people feel so lonely, I think, and so isolated when you're grieving, because there are things that are, I think, universal about grief, and then things that are very individual and different, and everybody handles it differently. But God, we have to do better with this topic. We have to do better, and to acknowledge and give it the weight it deserves. Like allow people that space to breathe and to be sad. And it's the only way through. You have to go through. You can't go around or above or under, or like you have to go through it.
I'm like all choked up. I feel like, especially when you become a parent,
Yes,
we feel the void even more.
Well,
You're just like, oh my
I
gosh,
just
if
chills. Yes,
yeah, grandpa was here, he would love to do this with you. And it's just, it's heartbreaking that you guys had to go through that. And I really, really feel for you.
I know. I think about that so much with my daughter, that, gosh, my dad would love her, like he would love her so much. It really makes me sad, but it is what it is.
I think I resonated with like saying that like I like to think my dad is looking over us
Me too.
and that like he is still with us.
Mhm.
And I'm sure as your daughter, and if you haven't already seen those things in her, I can see my dad and my kids at times.
Yes.
Like even though they've never even met my dad, right? Lost him. It's just like through genetics.
Yes.
Genetics to me aren't just looks.
Yes.
Like genetics really are personality
Yes.
because it's just like certain things. I'm like, oh, you're acting like your granddad, but like my kids wouldn't know. But just like the certain little things, and I can remember that. So
Mhm.
in those ways, I think our parents, everyone, that have come before us, they live on in us. And they even, I think in those moments, I'd like to think they're still kind of like part of our parenting story, still
Yes.
part of it. The things that they taught me, the things that my dad shared with me, like he shared a lot about music with me, and like I passed that on to my kids. So I think the things that you've done in your career, all of those things, still your daughter gets to experience with
Yeah.
you. So
I agree so much that, this is also what the book is about in a lot of ways, that I feel like my relationship with my dad is arguably closer and better now than it was when he was alive. He didn't understand my whole journey in life. He just wanted me to be he wanted me to be more conventional so that, and then after he passed, I really understood that was because, like, he wanted to make sure that I could take care of myself. He wanted me to be happy. He wanted me to be safe, well adjusted, like all the things that I want for my daughter, right? And this is all things that, I think we feel like death is so final. And in certain ways, it is. Certainly, the physical body's gone and you can't call them up on the phone or sit and have a meal with them. But I can't tell you how many times I have felt like he's like sitting right next to me,
He is. I
And
think he is.
it's
Yeah,
just,
he's here right now.
yes. And so,
They both are.
it's really an incredible feeling that, and when I come, and again, that doesn't replace the grief or the sadness. Like I just was crying 2 seconds ago in talking about this. But so it doesn't delegitimize that or take that away. It just, that to me is acknowledging how meaningful his presence was in my life, and
I love it. And you said something really powerful. You said that you don't really feel like, and I think this is something just to bring it kind of where we are, that your dad didn't really get like how you were growing up. Is that what you said? You don't really
yes.
think that? And I think now, I think no matter what, because I think I'm a cool mom too. I am a cool mom, even if my kids don't
You're a cool
recognize
mom.
Yeah.
I'm saying you are.
it.
Yeah.
They, we sometimes I think our kids don't feel like that. And I feel like with technology though, that is one thing that I personally do use technology for good, is to kind of like bridge that gap, because I feel like being on social media, it helps me to understand what's going on with kids, what's
Mhm.
trending, and kind of helps me to understand where they're kind of thinking. So I think my question for you is, what are some like technology things that you feel like you kind of may feel clueless on? How does technology play a role? I know you said you spoke about it a little bit. Do you think it helps bring y'all closer? Share some of the things that you do with your daughter. How is technology between you guys?
We have a very hard line on no social media. Zero for her, zero. And I will push that off as long as I possibly can. Certainly not before 16, but even after that, I'm hoping that we develop enough of an interest in other things in life that she won't want to. But I'm also not living under a rock where I think, eh, I understand that that's probably, something we're always going to have to deal with. But I will say what's things that are great about just technology in one regard is that she's super into sports, right? She's very athletic. She is very tiny and is a baller basketball player. Okay. So she's like, and she plays all the other sports too. But currently that's her thing. So we get to I get to show her Steph Curry talking about what it was like growing up as the smallest kid playing basketball, right? How do we get that? Because on Instagram they will post something. So I utilize it as a way to show her things that she wouldn't otherwise get to see. But I feel like I'm really careful about, like, she doesn't have free reign to just watch anything. She doesn't, but so we use it as things like, or like a speech that someone might give at an event, how else would she ever get to see something like that? Or, like I try to be really strategic. So it's not that we don't use it, because we certainly do. I mean, pretty much everyone does, I think. So, but it's like we're really trying to still curate her experience.
But you're laying some really great foundations down for your daughter. Like you're doing some really great things. You're putting things in place. Being that you kind of are using that model where you're stepping her into it, how do you plan on helping her to just like have that healthy relationship when it's time?
I know it's so hard. Yeah, it's the thing where you can't just say, trust me. You don't want to do this. You gotta, it doesn't work. Right. So I think what what I'm trying to do is to cultivate other parts of her life, right? So that she has things that she's really invested in or interested in and that stimulate her that do not have to do with a screen in any way, shape, or form. So that there is this thing of, oh, I can do that, but also I wanna get back to this, instead of the feeling of I want my 20 minutes on my iPad, like that being the thing that she's looking towards, right? We go through periods if we're traveling or we drove, for example, over New Year's and Christmas. We drove to LA and to Palm Springs, and we
Okay.
spent doing that. And so on the car ride, and for the whole time, we told her the whole time she wasn't going to have any access, which
Mhm.
was like losing her mind for the
Yeah.
first 5 minutes. And then it
Yeah.
was over, you know? We
Right.
played games in the car. I mean, just ask my husband about this. He's like, we're never doing this again. Like, just like things that he had to withstand. I'm like, look, this is what we're doing, like playing different games, like
All we had back in the day was that anyway. That's all we used to have.
yes,
License plate game or something. We're still
exactly.
here. We're not dead.
Right? License plates, like whatever, like these trivia things. My husband was like, poke me in the eye with a poker. She texts people. So she does have the ability, she has a watch and an iPad, and she can text friends. There's been some inappropriate things on there because we tell her we're reading your text messages. Just last night, my husband was like, when do we stop
Yep.
reading her text messages? I was like,
Never.
oh no, never. Yeah,
No.
but certainly
When
not.
you pay your own phone bill,
When you
that's what
hear
I
your
tell
own,
my
oh, that's a
kids.
great one.
When you pay your
When
own
you
phone bill, you can put anything and not at home. Because my 16-year-old tried to get around this by getting a job at Publix grocery store. And for about 3 months, he paid his phone so he built so he could have it in his room. So then I had to tweak
yeah,
it a little bit and say, when you pay your own bill and your own rent, you can, when you're out of here,
I
I'll
love
never
it.
get out of your business until you're out of here.
That is such
Okay.
a great yeah, and my husband's gonna love that too. That's perfect. Yes, that is great. But I try to point out to her, this is why, whether it's a boy has said some not nice things. And I said, you don't want to be treated this way. Like, this is not okay. And also, do you see how when friend, and even if, girls start to say, I read something where they were like, oh, that's so lame. Doing this is so lame. And then the next thing you know, everybody is sort of jumping on this bandwagon of talking about someone. And I'm like, look, first of all, anything you ever write in a text, on a phone, any of these platforms, you need to assume that everyone can see it and it stays forever. So really think about that. So don't ever put something in there that you can't stand behind. Sometimes it comes down to, I'm sorry, it's because we know better than you and you don't understand like why you can't do X, Y, and Z. Just because, like, when we were kids, how many times were we told because I said so, but I try not to do that. But in some things, it's like, well, your brain and your frontal lobe are not fully developed yet. And this is why you can't look at a screen all day long. Like that's why you just can't. You don't get it
That's
yet,
the reason.
but your brain's not formed. Period.
Exactly.
Exactly.
No, that's right.
Um, when kids do want to get on social, I think they get so driven by the dopamine hits,
Yeah.
as do we when
Yep.
we're
Yep.
doom scrolling and we're, it's like, oh my gosh, 2 hours has just elapsed, or the number of likes, the number of followers you have. They peg so much of their self worth on
Yeah.
that. So, like, how can you encourage parents that do have their kids on social to build up their confidence in real life and say, glad you're on here, but don't take it to heart how many likes or followers are,
I don't know
filtered.
how you this is a tough one because I don't know. You can't tell your kid how many likes don't matter. Like I don't know. They're not going to believe you that that's how they feel. So it's like I think you have to establish that before they ever even are on the platform. It must be so hard. Like Samantha, your kids' ages, so they didn't know anything but that really, right? Or and
No, and
certainly like pandemic time, probably just
yep,
everything
yep.
became flooded.
That's really when it got active. I think for me with my kids, I was similar to you. Me and Kanika have talked about this. I was like a wait till later
Mhm.
parent when it came to social media. I just was kind of like, oh, well, let's just, if we delay it until I can get more comfortable with it. So definitely about 2020 21, my parenting style is very much use it with your kids
Yes.
because I want to be in the know of what you're doing.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was definitely a time when the kids got active around the pandemic, and being at home and dance trends and yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. Right.
But you know what I think a lot of times though, we think about tech as just like social media. One thing I wanted to talk to you about is, which is my kids' even bigger favorite more than social media right now, is ChatGPT and AI. It's
Oh,
taking over everything. It's taking over homework. It's taking over my emails. Shh, don't tell anybody, guys. And I'm constantly in between trying to figure out, is this right? It's easy, but is it right?
yeah.
How do you navigate that? Is that a conversation that you guys have to have in
So
your house?
at my daughter's school, they she's in 6th grade, and they have started the dialogue about all of this. They started it, I think, last year, but now they really talk about it where they talk about AI and how they are allowed to use it and how they aren't allowed to use it. They teach them about fake news versus real news. They teach them about that digital citizenship of not only how you present yourself online, but how you gather information and what is real and what isn't. And again, obviously this is all a moving target, like nothing, it's happening in real time. So I just 100% err on the side of not using it unless it's, and I, I don't, I, it, it's really scary. I mean, and I just, it's so funny. Like, I am not an alarmist and I am not a person who is, but all these things keep me up at night where I'm like, am I becoming an alarmist? Like, ah. I think there are big dangers of giving yourself, like even just asking it a question, right? I know people that are my contemporaries who have a name for their person that gives them all the answers with their children who are young children. And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. You think it's okay to go ask, Martin what he thinks about blah 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 while you're driving along in the car, and Martin's going to be the voice of reason? I was like, what? You like, this is not, you don't even know where Martin's information is coming from, and
That's true.
so it's like whew, it's
You're making me rethink my life. I definitely call my Chat GPT friend. I'm
yeah.
like, hey, friend, what do you think we should cook for dinner tonight?
Oh my,
It's like, you ate chicken last week. Why not fish? But that is
oh,
really great. My kids
that's
actually reel
awful.
me in though. They tell me, they'll say, Mom, especially if we're having like a fact war, because we
Uh-huh.
go back and forth with different things that we're a big debate family.
I love
And
that.
they'll say, well, you know that when you whenever you Google something, that's not always the correct one. They just pull from the easiest. So mom, that may not be a correct fact. So you're right, we have to be careful. We do have to fact check when we're asking these different things to give us information, because it isn't always 100% accurate. It can't just be pulling from different things. That's so true.
Yes, exactly. Life is like complicated and we're busy and we got like a lot of stuff to do. And so if we can get something that is a quick answer, like I get the instinct and we all have it and it's a wonderful tool, but I just think we have to be mindful about it,
Common sense.
and right and have common sense. But I think that's exactly the point. It's like having common sense about it, right? And just because we're so oversaturated with things, and this gets back to my my worry about my daughter sort of conforming in a way. It's like, just because there is a lot of something does not mean that it is good, wise, positive, healthy. It just means that suddenly there's a lot of it.
I will be pulling that out. Just because there's a lot of something doesn't mean that it's good or it's right. And you've given us a lot of great things. If you could just share 2 or 3 things, like your top, like 2 to 3 pieces of advice for parenting, to the people who are listening, whether it like tech, social media, any of it, give us like 2 or 3 of your like top ones.
I would say the top one is to listen to your kids. Just listen. Listen to what they're saying and what they aren't saying. And, sometimes because we do have so many resources today, it feels like, oh, give them this, give them that. If I say that, sometimes it isn't any of those things. It is just being with your kid, like just being with them, and without any goal other than that. That would be one. And sometimes they don't want to be with you. And then you're like, guess what? We're going to be together. And the whole time you're going to be counting the minutes till we are together. Maybe in the last minute, you're going to say, oh, this is nice. And then, tell me something that you wouldn't have told me. You know what I mean? Then I think that leads to the second thing I would say is really just, and there is no recipe for this. If my daughter was sitting here, she'd be like, oh, I hate that you do that, But I think just keeping the lines of communication open, just trying to do that, and again, there's no recipe for that, because me saying to my daughter, I want you to be able to tell me anything you can't, doesn't mean that she's going to do it. So it's more of like a sort of internal goal. And limit screen time. Just put limits. That's it. Just put limits when they're young. That's it. And then there's no argument, right? It's like a rule. This is what we do. She gets 20 minutes during the week on her iPad after she's finished her homework and done whatever she needs to do. And that's it. So then there's no argument. There's no like debating it, and right. And it's just like 20, that's it.
That's a non-negotiable.
And whatever time frame works, that's what I would say.
That's the secret. Yeah, we do something similar. I actually give my kids like a baking timer, and they have to time themselves. And even though they're really young,
better.
Yeah, because it's like, then I'm going to be hounding them. Remember, it's like 5 more minutes. Up, the timer's up. The timer's up. Give me the tablet, and they never give it. So I want them to have the agency to say, the timer is up. It's almost like having an alarm and not snoozing. And it's up to me. The onus is on me to shut it down. And that way, I just feel like when they're in college and they're away from this house, they already knew how to do that without mom wagging the finger, being like, that's enough.
That is great.
Just giving them that. Yeah. So, okay, let's get into the rapid fire, which is AI versus as if. And this, basically a tech-inspired, Clueless themed round where if it's something that you're on board with, AI. AI stands for artificial intelligence. Action item, good. As if is, we know, like, no chance. So let's go with the first one.
Okay.
Okay. Letting AI help with your kids' homework. AI or as if?
As if.
Using AI to write heartfelt birthday cards. AI or as if?
Big as if.
Oh, I love that. You're personal. Tracking your child's location.
AI.
Letting your kid have an AI-powered virtual friend.
As if.
Letting AI decide your next family vacation destination. AI or as if?
I mean, AI, I'd be curious what it would say.
Okay, and using AI for parenting advice instead of calling your friends.
Oh, as if. That's an as if, I think.
Alicia, thanks so much for joining us on the show and being so candid and so honest. It's really, really refreshing.
Oh, thank you so much. It has been my absolute pleasure to talk with both of you. And I love these conversations. I am a firm believer that this is how we move forward in life, and how we help one another is really by having these conversations. And I really appreciate that you all are doing this.
Thank you. Will you tell everyone? We love the conversation. Tell everyone where they can find you and follow you, please.
I am on Instagram at Red Donovan. Really, Instagram is the main place.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode with ELISA Donovan. It is so important to know when your kids are ready for social media, and Meta's Family Center has information to help guide you through that.
You can visit familycenter.meta.com, and there you'll learn more about parental controls and Instagram teen accounts. And do that with your kids, so that way you all are on the same page. Thanks for tuning in today. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast series wherever you listen for insightful tips on parenting and online safety.
And you can find me, Samantha Danielle, at samanthadanielle.com or on Instagram at Hey Samantha Danielle.
And you can find me, Kanika Chadda-Gupta, on my website, that's totalmomsense.com, and on Insta at Kanika Chadda-Gupta. See you soon.
See you soon.